Let's be honest. People lie way more than we think, and it's not always the strangers we suspect. It could be a friend, your partner, or even someone in your family. We all like to believe we're good at spotting lies, but in reality, we often overlook the signs, especially because we want to trust those closest to us. I've been there myself. I thought I was great at judging people's character until I realized that someone I trusted was lying to me right in front of my eyes for months. The problem wasn't that I didn't see the signs, it was that I chose to ignore them. They were right in front of me. Small changes in behavior, exaggerated excuses, sudden defensive reactions. Yet I convinced myself it was nothing. The truth is, people lie all the time, and the sooner we accept this, the quicker we can see beyond the facade. If you're willing to let go of illusions and face reality, here are some clear signs that someone is lying to you. Get ready because it might be happening closer to home than you think. 1. Rapid topic change. Have you ever been in a conversation where the person switched topics so fast it felt like you were playing a game of verbal dodgeball? You bring up something important, something you genuinely care about, and suddenly, boom, they're talking about something completely different. It's like they have a getaway plan ready, and the moment things get serious, they escape to the safety of a totally irrelevant subject. Let me share a personal story. I was in a relationship where this happened frequently, and honestly, at first I didn't even notice. Whenever I tried to talk about our future plans, something simple like where we wanted to be in a year or how we'd handle tough situations, the topic would switch to something trivial, like what we were having for dinner or something he saw on social media. It was so subtle, almost imperceptible, and I let it slide because I didn't want to push too hard. I convinced myself that the person just wasn't ready for that kind of conversation, or maybe I was being too intense. But here's the point. They were never ready. This was a sign of something much deeper than just avoiding a topic. It was avoiding responsibility. And here's an important question. People don't change the subject just out of distraction or forgetfulness. Most of the time, they do it because facing the truth is uncomfortable. Often we prefer to keep the peace, even if it means letting lies go unnoticed. That's the mistake. Allowing someone to dodge a tough topic doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It opens the door to dishonesty. When someone quickly changes the subject, it's not just an attempt to evade, it's a refusal to confront the truth. This leads us to an important question. What does this say about the relationship? Whether it's a partner, friend, or even a coworker, a lie isn't always a blatant falsehood. Sometimes it's as subtle as a sudden change of topic. We think the only lies worth questioning are those spoken aloud, but the unspoken ones, those avoided or ignored, are the ones that gradually undermine trust. I learned this the hard way. Whenever I allowed the conversation to shift, I was silently accepting the evasion and letting the person continue to deceive me. I wanted to believe everything was fine, so I let the topic change. But that's the danger. When people avoid the truth, the integrity of the relationship is compromised. So here's what I learned. Don't let it slide when someone tries to change the subject. It's not about being aggressive, but about setting a standard of honesty. If someone truly values you, they'll face tough conversations no matter how uncomfortable they are. And if they don't, it might be time to question what kind of relationship you're building, because the truth, no matter how hard, always builds stronger bonds than any lie. 2. Listening to understand, not just to respond. Listening is one of the most underrated skills when it comes to building genuine connections, yet it's essential for making people feel truly special. The problem is, most of us don't really listen. We're just waiting for our turn to talk. We get so caught up in preparing our next response that we end up missing the chance to understand what the other person is really saying. This often makes them feel ignored or undervalued. Here's an uncomfortable truth. If you're not listening to understand, you're wasting your time. I've made this mistake many times, sitting in conversations, nodding along, pretending to pay attention, but inside I was just formulating my next response. And you know what happens? People notice. They can tell when you're just waiting to speak, and it doesn't make them feel valued. It makes them feel used. On the other hand, when you really listen to understand, you're not only showing respect, but also creating a deeper connection. You're giving the person the space they need to express themselves without the pressure of immediate judgment. I remember a time when a friend was clearly going through a tough moment. My first instinct was to offer advice and solutions, but I decided to just listen. Without interrupting, without suggesting anything, I let him talk. In the end, he thanked me, saying he had never felt so heard before. This taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply listen. The main message is this: in a world full of noise, genuinely listening is a rare gift. People aren't always looking for advice or opinions. Often, they just want to be heard. When you offer this gift, you stand out as someone who truly cares. 3. Being defensive for no apparent reason. Have you ever been in a situation where you ask a simple question and the person reacts so disproportionately, it feels like they've been accused of something very serious? Imagine you're in a casual conversation and ask something innocuous, like, "Did you take the last slice of pizza?" Suddenly, the person starts over-explaining, insisting they would never do such a thing and how ridiculous it is for you to even suggest it. What began as an innocent question turns into a lengthy defense, as if they're trying to hide something bigger than just having eaten the last slice. This reaction, which we call getting defensive for no reason, is a clear sign that the person might be hiding something. Let me share a personal experience to illustrate this better. Once I was working on a group project, and one of the members started acting strangely whenever I asked about their part of the work. When I asked something simple like, "How's the report going?" they reacted dramatically, almost as if I had offended them. They would say, "Why do you always think I'm not doing my part? I'm working hard. I don't need you watching over me." What made the situation more suspicious was that, during meetings, they spent more time fiddling with their phone than actually contributing. It didn't take long for us to discover that they were behind on their part of the work and had been trying to cover it up. Here's the delicate issue. Usually, when someone reacts overly defensively to a simple question, it's a strong indication that they're trying to hide something. As the saying goes, those who have nothing to hide fear nothing. My experience taught me that when someone justifies themselves too much over a question that doesn't warrant that kind of response, it's a red flag to pay more attention. What are they trying to protect with so much energy? If someone truly has nothing to hide, they won't turn a simple question into an attack on their integrity. Honest people tend to be calmer and more straightforward in their responses. Those who are guilty, so to speak, are always on the defensive, as if they're waiting to be caught. What lies behind these exaggerated reactions is the fear of the truth coming out. And here's an important lesson about human nature. When people become defensive for no clear reason, it's guilt that's speaking, not innocence. For us, it's essential to recognize that this type of behavior usually isn't about us overstepping boundaries, but about them trying to steer us away from the truth. It's like these individuals are a house with all the doors locked, pretending everything is normal while you hold the key, and they hope you never try to open it. The point is, when we ignore these signs of defensiveness, we allow lies to thrive. By backing off in response to these exaggerated reactions, we inadvertently teach people that they can get away with making us feel guilty for asking something simple. But it's not about being rude or intrusive. It's about valuing honesty over temporary comfort. People trying to hide something will twist in every way possible to avoid being caught, and being defensive is just one of the tactics they use. So the next time someone reacts excessively to a simple question, don't feel bad about it. Instead of backing down, stay curious and keep probing, because in many cases, this overreaction is just an attempt to divert your attention from the truth. You deserve to live in an environment of transparency, not behind the smokescreen that these people try to create. Now, it's important to mention that not all defensive situations are directly linked to lying. Some people may overreact due to insecurities or past traumas, but even in those cases, the truth is still being hidden. Maybe not a direct lie, but a difficulty in dealing with certain topics. Either way, it's crucial to learn how to interpret these reactions and not let unwarranted defensiveness be a barrier to transparency and trust in your relationships. When facing these situations, it's vital to remain calm and patient. Often, defensiveness is an automatic emotional response, and gently yet firmly insisting can help the person open up. If we notice that defensive reactions are becoming a pattern, it's a clear sign that something else is going on, and ignoring it can compromise mutual trust in the long run. Honesty is the foundation of any healthy relationship, whether romantic, professional, or friendly. When we allow small lies or evasions to accumulate, we're slowly undermining that foundation, often without realizing it. So if someone is constantly on the defensive for no apparent reason, it's time for a deeper conversation about what's going on. It's not about witch hunts, but ensuring both sides are committed to truth and transparency. Finally, I want to emphasize that we've all been defensive at some point, especially when we feel insecure or vulnerable. The difference lies in how we handle it. People who truly value honesty and trusting relationships tend to recognize when they're being defensive and eventually open up to sincere dialogue. Those who have something to hide will continue to use defensiveness as a shield, trying to keep their true intentions from being discovered. In summary, if you notice someone reacting excessively to a simple question or comment, it's worth investigating further. Not because you want to catch this person in a lie, but because you value honesty and want to ensure the relationship is based on mutual trust. After all, a bond built on truth is always stronger and longer lasting than one built on evasions and secrets. 4. Excessively polished details. Now let's talk about excessively polished details. Have you ever heard someone tell a story so well crafted that it feels rehearsed for an award? Every detail seems perfect. The timing is precise, and the narrative flows so smoothly that it feels too good to be true. Well, guess what? It probably is. I've encountered this more times than I'd like to admit. There was a guy I knew, let's call him James, who could tell stories in an impressive way. I mean, he had that Hollywood glamour in his storytelling. One time he told us about a supposed business deal he closed, describing each moment as if he were narrating an action movie scene live. Everything was so captivating, from the instant he signed the contract to sealing the deal with a firm handshake while gazing over the city skyline. You could almost hear the dramatic music in the background. The problem is, reality is messy. Life doesn't follow a script, and when someone's story seems rehearsed for a perfect presentation, your lie detector should start beeping. In the end, we found out that James had exaggerated half the story and made up the other half. But here's the controversial part. Many people prefer not to point out these overly elaborate details because, let's face it, we love a good narrative. We enjoy hearing stories that are organized, exciting, and dramatic, so we overlook them, even when our gut tells us something is off. And this is exactly how liars get away with it. They rely on our need for a tidy story. We want the narrative to make sense, to be clear and easy to understand. The truth, with all its messiness, is inconvenient. But life doesn't come in perfect packages, and when someone's narrative is too smooth, you're likely hearing fiction, not facts. Now here's where it gets deeper. When someone polishes their details too much, they're not just trying to impress you. They're trying to control the narrative. They want you to believe a version of events that's been carefully crafted to benefit them. It's like they're the director, the screenwriter, and the star of their own movie, while you're just the audience, expected to applaud without questioning. But that's when you need to step back and realize that perfection doesn't exist in real life. I learned this the hard way when I started digging deeper into James' stories. Whenever I asked for more details, things began to fall apart. The sharp edges of his narrative became blurred, and suddenly what had once been a flawless account of success turned into a strange, jumbled mess. That's the thing about liars. They can rehearse, but they can't handle follow-up questions. Real-life details are chaotic, and when someone is overly polished, it's a sign they're creating a fantasy, not recounting the truth. The deeper message here is that life is complex, messy, and full of imperfections, and that's a good thing. When someone tries to present you with a story where every detail is perfectly aligned, where nothing goes wrong, and everything fits together perfectly, they're selling you an illusion. If you buy into that, you're doing yourself a disservice because true connection is built on reality, not fantasy. Real relationships and genuine trust aren't built on fairy tales. They're based on raw honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. So the next time you hear someone tell a story that seems a bit too polished, don't just enjoy the show. Ask questions, dig deeper. The real truth is complicated, and if someone isn't willing to show their imperfections, they're not showing the truth at all. Remember, life doesn't need to be perfect to be honest, and anyone who pretends otherwise is likely hiding something they don't want you to see. Body turning away from you. Have you ever noticed when someone's body is turned away from you, even if they're talking directly? It's like their words say, "I'm engaged," but their body screams, "I'd rather be anywhere else right now." This is one of those subtle, almost invisible signs that people think you won't notice. But trust me, it says a lot. Let me give you a real example. I had a friend who, whenever we got into deeper conversations, would subtly turn his body away. At first, I thought maybe it was just how he sat. Perhaps he was uncomfortable. But the more it happened, the clearer it became. Every time we touched on something personal or uncomfortable, his body would start to turn, as if he were trying to physically escape the conversation. I didn't need a psychology degree to see that something was off. Eventually, I found out he had lied about a few things. Nothing too serious, but enough to break the trust. His body knew before his words slipped out. Here's the controversial part. Many people ignore body language, thinking it's not important or that we're exaggerating. But that's where they're wrong. Your body doesn't lie like words can. When someone turns their body away from you, even slightly, it's as if their subconscious is trying to distance itself from the truth. And the worst part? Most of us ignore these signs because we don't want to deal with what they might mean. We convince ourselves it's just a habit or that it's no big deal. But let's be honest, if someone is physically distancing themselves from you, it's a red flag. It may not always be about a big lie, but it's definitely a sign that something isn't right. And here's the deeper point. When people can't look you directly in the eye, it's not just about comfort, it's about confrontation. They don't want to face the reality of the situation, and their body language betrays them before they even realize it. I used to ignore these signs thinking, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But after watching this happen repeatedly, I learned that when someone physically turns away during a conversation, it's not just because they're restless. They're subconsciously trying to avoid being fully seen, because deep down, they're hiding something. The real message here is that body language doesn't happen in isolation. If someone's body is turned away from you while they're speaking, it's a sign that they're uncomfortable with what's being discussed. They may be trying to protect themselves not from you, but from the truth they don't want to reveal. It's as if they think that by turning away, they can escape your ability to see through them. I'll tell you what I've learned from all this. Don't ignore these signs. It may seem strange to notice, and even stranger to mention, but body language is one of the most sincere forms of communication. When someone turns away from you, they're creating emotional, mental, and physical distance. And if you don't confront that distance will only grow. So the next time you're in a conversation and notice someone subtly leaning away, take it as a sign. Maybe it's time to ask the tough question they don't want to answer. Maybe it's time to dig deeper and find out what they're hiding. Because honesty doesn't turn away from you, and neither should the people you trust. 6. Laughing at serious topics. Have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with someone, and they just laugh as if nothing's going on? You're trying to talk about something meaningful, maybe a personal issue or something that really bothers you, and their response is an awkward laugh that changes the subject and moves on. It's as if they're using humor as a shield to avoid the truth. At first, this might seem innocent, even charming, but trust me, when someone laughs at serious topics, it often means they're hiding something important. Let me share a personal experience. I was in a relationship where, whenever I tried to discuss relevant issues, real conversations about what truly matters, the response was always laughter. I'd say something like, "Hey, I've been feeling disconnected lately." And they'd laugh and say, "Oh, you're overthinking it, relax." That laugh wasn't just a casual response. It was a way to dismiss the conversation and avoid facing the problem. Over time, I realized that anytime I tried to bring up something serious, it was met with humor, sarcasm, or a quick joke. What I learned is that laughter was a way to avoid responsibility and not confront uncomfortable truths. Here's the controversial part. We've all been conditioned to think that humor is a good thing, right? It relieves tension, makes everyone feel more at ease, and helps break the ice. However, when someone constantly uses laughter to divert serious topics, it becomes a red flag. It's like they're trying to hide lies disguised as jokes. And here's the crucial point. Most people ignore this because no one wants to be the killjoy who insists on a serious topic after someone's turned it into a joke. People laugh at serious things because they don't want to deal with the weight of the conversation. It's an escape route, plain and simple. They'd rather keep things light and breezy so you don't dig any deeper. But here's the truth. Real conversations, the ones that truly matter, shouldn't always be easy or light. They should challenge you, make you think, and push you toward honesty. If someone can't handle that, you need to ask yourself, what are they really hiding behind those laughs? There's a deeper message about emotional maturity here. When people laugh at serious topics, it signals that they aren't ready, or worse, that they aren't willing to have an honest conversation. It's like they're putting a funny facade over something they know they can't explain. It could be fear of being vulnerable, or the awareness that if they actually talk about it, they'll expose the truth they're trying to bury. I see this pattern repeatedly. People use humor to deflect, to make you feel like you're taking things too seriously. But let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with taking things seriously, especially when it comes to important matters. And if someone laughs at that, don't be afraid to question it. Simple questions like, why do you find that funny, can expose the discomfort they're trying to hide. The real problem with laughing at serious topics is that it shuts down the conversation before it even begins. It's like putting up a giant no entry sign on the road to genuine communication. And if you don't address this, those critical conversations you need to have about relationships, trust and responsibility never happen. Everything stays on the surface and nothing gets resolved. Moreover, using laughter to dodge important issues can hinder the development of healthy and honest communication. Relationships based on superficial humor can become shallow, preventing deeper understanding between people. This is even more relevant in situations where empathy and understanding are essential to resolve conflicts and strengthen bonds. Here's the deeper message. Honesty isn't always fun. It can be uncomfortable, heavy, and often shouldn't be brushed aside with laughter. If someone can't take serious issues seriously, it's not just about them avoiding a conversation, it's about avoiding a real connection in the truth. If they can't face those tough topics with you, how much trust can you really place in them? So the next time someone laughs at a serious conversation, don't let it slide. Ask the tough questions, push for the uncomfortable truth. Laughter might lighten the moment, but it doesn't erase the weight of what's really going on beneath the surface. If they're not willing to drop the act, you already have your answer. They aren't being honest with you. Communication is a vital aspect of any relationship, whether personal or professional. Creating a safe space to discuss difficult topics can lead to greater understanding and intimacy. Encourage open and honest conversations, even when they feel uncomfortable. After all, it's often in vulnerability that we find the deepest connections. It's important that everyone feels comfortable expressing their emotions and concerns without fear of being ridiculed or ignored. In doing so, you not only promote healthier communication, but also build a solid foundation for lasting and meaningful relationships. 7. Vague responses when asking for details. Let's talk about the vagueness that comes up when we ask for details. Have you ever had that moment when you ask someone a specific question and suddenly they turn into a poet, filled with ambiguities and grand gestures, but offering no concrete information? You ask for dates, names, facts, and the response you get is a mix of rambling, as if they're trying to avoid the topic, dancing around in a fog. This can be one of the most frustrating experiences, but it also serves as a big red flag. If someone can't give you straightforward answers when pressed, they're likely hiding something. Let me share an example from my own life. I once worked with a colleague who always talked about big deals he was closing, but whenever someone asked for more details, like which companies he was negotiating with or how advanced the talks were, he became a master at evasion. "Oh, we're in the early stages, some exciting conversations happening, can't share too much right now, but it's something big." Weeks went by, and when we asked again, the response was the same. Eventually, we discovered that there was no deal at all, and he had made up most of the conversations. He was bluffing, hoping no one would dig deeper with their questions. Now here's the part that might seem controversial. When someone becomes vague when asked for details, it's not just that they're being secretive, they're actually lying. Let's be clear, vagueness is a liar's best friend because it allows them to escape accountability. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. You think you're getting somewhere, but they keep slipping away with evasive and complicated answers. They bet that you're too polite or too distracted to insist. Here's the truth. Honest people don't need to hide behind vagueness. They can give you clear answers because they have nothing to protect. If you ask for details, they will provide direct information without beating around the bush. No tricks. But a liar thrives in gray areas. They know that the more vague they can be, the harder it will be for you to press them. It's a classic evasion tactic, and we often fall into this trap because we've been taught not to push. We don't want to seem rude or desperate for answers. Now let's be realistic for a moment. We've all been in situations where we've been vague, right? Maybe we weren't prepared. Maybe we felt cornered, or maybe we just didn't want to admit we didn't know something. But here's the difference. An honest person will admit it. Saying, "I'm not sure right now," or "I need to check on that," is very different from offering a lot of rambling just to seem like they're in control. The problem starts when people deliberately use vagueness to avoid being found out. There's an important message here about integrity and trust. When someone doesn't give you clear answers, they are undermining the foundation of trust in a relationship, whether personal or professional. And worse, they're counting on your willingness not to press them. They gamble that you'll let it slide, as insisting on details might feel uncomfortable. But the truth is, when you feel that discomfort, that's exactly the moment you should insist and seek clarity. People who can't be specific when asked directly aren't comfortable with the truth. That's the controversial truth many don't want to admit. They might say, "Oh, maybe they're just bad with details," or "maybe they're too busy." But I've learned from experience that true honesty doesn't shy away from details. If they really care about being honest with you, they will be clear. If they're dodging the question, that's a clear sign they have something to hide. I've decided to stop letting people get away with vague responses. If you want to know if someone is being sincere with you, pay attention to how they respond when you ask for details. Do they seem uncomfortable? Do they give you broad, empty statements with no real content? That's your sign to dig deeper. And if they still can't give you a clear answer, consider that a signal that they're not being honest. Here's the most important lesson. Honesty isn't always convenient, but it is clear and straightforward. It doesn't hide behind ambiguities. When people refuse to give you details, it's because they fear what those details might reveal. It's like they're building a wall of vagueness to prevent you from seeing the truth. And if they can't tear down that wall for you, you need to ask yourself why they're building it in the first place. Next time someone gives you a vague answer when you ask for details, don't back down. You deserve clarity, and anyone who truly respects you will be willing to provide it. Vagueness might seem like a small detail, but in a bigger context, it's a major sign of deeper problems. Problems that can erode trust faster than any lie. To sum it up, lies don't always show up in clear and obvious ways. Sometimes they're in the little things. Vague responses, overly elaborate stories, uncomfortable laughter that ends up revealing everything. If you start paying attention to these subtle signs, you'll see the truth that people try to hide in plain sight. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, and don't settle for half-truths. At the end of the day, you deserve honesty, and the people who can't offer you that are the ones you should leave behind. Stay alert, remain true to the truth, and always seek clarity, because it's essential for building solid and healthy relationships. Thank you so much to all the subscribers who watched this video. I appreciate you joining us on this journey of self-discovery and the practice of Stoic philosophy. If you found this content helpful and believe that more people could benefit from this information, please don't hesitate to share the video. Become a member of the channel. I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming discussions on how to live more consciously and authentically. I would also love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below with the phrase, "Truth and clarity are the foundations of relationships." Let's discuss how we can apply these principles in our daily lives together. And of course, don't forget to like the video. Your support is crucial for us to continue bringing more content that helps us all navigate the complexities of relationships and live according to Stoic philosophy. Thank you for being here, and see you in the next video.